I should not have to remind anyone in this room that one does not reach the podium of the American Surgical Association without enormous help. There are too many of you in this room, my dear friends in the audience, to single you out individually. But suffice it to say, I'm humbled to have this privilege. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge my parents, who felt that their role in life was to provide encouragement and make sacrifices that I may one day have an opportunity such as this. I'm sure today they would be very proud. I want to divide my talk into 3 sections: honoring the past and what we can learn from my predecessors at Washington University, what we have done to build on that foundation by creating a supportive, nurturing environment in the Department of Surgery, and how to position an academic surgery department to meet the demands of the future. Washington University School of Medicine can trace its lineage back to the first schools founded west of the Mississippi. The first medical school west of the Mississippi, the Medical Department of Kemper College, was founded in St. Louis in 1840 by Joseph Nash McDowell. Eventually, the school affiliated with the University of Missouri. In 1857, this school was chartered independently as the Missouri Medical College, but was often referred to as McDowell's College. Operation was disrupted during the Civil War when McDowell left St. Louis to serve in the Confederate Army, and the Union military responded by converting McDowell's College into a prison for Confederate troops. Medical instruction, however, resumed after the war. In the meantime, St. Louis Medical College was chartered in 1841 as a medical department of St. Louis University. The university allowed them to be governed by an autonomous, non-sectarian board of trustees. And in 1855, the state of Missouri granted the college a charter as an independent institution called the St. Louis Medical College. The institution was dominated by one man, Charles Alexander Pope, and was commonly referred to as Pope's College. In 1891, the St. Louis Medical College became affiliated with Washington University and was designated as its medical department. The old name was dropped when the school merged with the Missouri Medical College in 1899 and became eventually the School of Medicine of Washington University. The modern beginnings of Washington University starts with Robert S. Brookings, who served as the president of the corporation from 1895 until 1928 and left an indelible stamp on the university. His vision helped articulate a university for the Southwest and engaged the General Education Board of the Rockefeller Foundation to modernize the medical school and use a full-time faculty model. Henry S. Pritchett was a former professor of mathematics and astronomy at Washington University, and he knew Brookings well. As president of the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching, Pritchett played an important role in medical education by engaging Abraham Flexner, who made a formal study of the state of medical education in the United States and Canada in 1910 and authored his seminal study. Flexner became very close friends with Brookings, and while he described the medical school at Washington University as one in, quote, wretched condition, and, quote, entirely out of harmony with the rest of the institution, he emphasized the opportunity that was unique to Washington University. His report emphasized that the institution had a prime opportunity for training of physicians for the entire Southwest of the country, and noted the city of St. Louis has in this section an even clearer opportunity than has Chicago in the Midwest, New York in the East, or Boston in New England. Brookings and the board anticipated his report by planning new buildings, equipment, and the appointment of a trained, eminent, and successful teacher of clinical medicine as dean. Brookings and the board envisioned the greatest medical school in the United States and linked medicine to this idea of a university for the Southwest, which became inscribed as official policy of the institution. What resulted was the dedication of medical school buildings on the present Kings Highway campus, heavily influenced by the presence of William Welch from Johns Hopkins. Brookings was an entrepreneur, and he recognized that the medical school would only be as good as its ties to a hospital, and therefore he built a power plant and offered free power to the not yet completed Barnes Hospital. By the way, the power plant is still there. Robert Barnes, a St. Louis wholesale grocer and banker, donated $100,000 for construction of a hospital. With Brookings' encouragement, the trustees of Barnes purchased the site at the Kings Highway, engaged Theodore Link, a world-renowned architect of Union Station, and the hospital was completed in 1914. The General Education Board, fueled by the Rockefeller Endowment, championed a strict full-time plan, or as William Walsh referred to it, a university plan. The General Education Board selected Johns Hopkins as the torchbearer of the strict full-time movement. In October of 1913, awarded that institution $1.5 million for the endowment of positions in medicine, surgery, and pathology. The second grant was made to Washington University School of Medicine in the amount of $1 million, because St. Louis at the time was regarded as one of the wealthiest cities in America, and Brookings had been very successful in raising funds for this new venture. Indeed, Brookings engaged a self-made man, William K. Bigsby, who was the president of the American Car and Foundry Company, and at the time, the wealthiest St. Louisan. Bigsby provided some of the matching funds and endowed the second oldest chair in the School of Medicine, a position for the full-time chair of surgery. Another St. Louisan, the widow of the head of the Majestic Manufacturing Company, which produced malleable stoves, Mary Culver, also provided generous matching funds. And this endowed the Department of Surgery, which today is the Mary Culver Department of Surgery at Washington University School of Medicine. In the wake of the Flexner Report, the investment of the General Education Board, Brookings fired all of the part-time faculty and hired full-time university professors from some of the most distinguished medical schools at the time. More importantly, the executive faculty form of governance with the chairs running the medical schools adopted even before the adoption of such a model at Hopkins. These powerful chairs were given resources and charged with developing the best departments in the land, some of whom, like Joseph Erlanger, would go on to win the Nobel Prize. Today, Washington University School of Medicine boasts 17 Nobel laureates who have been part of their rich faculty. Fred Murphy was recruited from Harvard, became the first surgeon-in-chief at Barnes Hospital during this period. He performed the first operation, an appendectomy, in the new Barnes Hospital. However, he abruptly resigned in 1919 because he believed that he could not believe in or work under a full-time idea. After a one-month search, Evarts Graham, the epitome of an academic clinical scientist, assumed the leadership of the department and raised the department to new international renown. Of course, Dr. Graham loved doing experiments. One group of experiments studied the function of the gallbladder. Graham, along with Warren Cole, who would lead his own department of surgery eventually, developed an oral cholecystogram. It was interesting that when Edward Mallinckrodt approached Graham to purchase the patent, Graham suggested that the investment be made in the Department of Radiology, who of course were indispensable collaborators for these experiments, because radiology needed the money. This formed the corpus of what would become the Mallinckrodt Institute of Radiology, one of the most prestigious departments of radiology in the world and one of the largest endowments in academic medicine. Graham would go on to perform the first single-stage total pneumonectomy in which the patient survived. This surgery was performed on a 48-year-old obstetrician gynecologist from Pittsburgh who had trained at Washington University and was a lifelong smoker. The tumor in the left upper lobe had negative margins, and the operation took an hour and 45 minutes. Another one of Graham's seminal contributions was linking cigarette smoking to the development of lung cancer. With Ernest Winder, he authored a series of papers documenting this link as well as doing animal experiments to verify it. Graham himself, a smoker for most of his life, quit several years before stepping down from his chair position. Dr. Graham died of metastatic lung cancer in 1957. He is often credited with single-handedly helping to get physicians to stop smoking. A few years later, the influence of this giant was seen by issuance of the Surgeon General's warning in 1966 and a full ban on cigarette advertising in 1970. Graham's legacy of his 3 decades as head of the department was documented by producing 11 chairs of major departments of surgery in the United States and 9 chairs in other countries. In recognition of his Herculean contributions, Dr. Graham served as president of the American Association for Thoracic Surgery, this organization, and the American College of Surgeons. His high ethical standards and aversion to fee splitting led to his being a founding member of the American Board of Surgery. He was the chairman of that organization for its first 4 years of operation. Truly, Graham was a giant in his time and was recognized as such by others. He was offered the opportunity to succeed Halsted at Johns Hopkins, as well as a chance to succeed Cushing at the Peterbent Brigham Hospital. Fortunately for Washington University, he chose to stay in St. Louis. Dr. Graham was succeeded by Carl Moyer, who was educated at the University of Michigan and studied physiology at the Massachusetts General Hospital. He was previously the chair of surgery and dean at UT Southwestern. Like Graham, Moyer was a scientist who wanted to solve practical problems. Dr. Moyer made a major contribution through his studies of silver nitrate solution in the treatment of acute burns. But Dr. Moyer was best known as a wonderful teacher who took great interest in his students and was a superb role model. In Moyer's words, what is the role of a teacher? He is nothing more than an inspirer and guide in a forest of ignorance in which he himself is often confused but rarely lost. Dr. Moyer also had a strong social conscience and supported the education of black physicians and nurses at the Homer G. Phillips Hospital, one of only 3 institutions at the time where this training could occur. In fact, Homer G. Phillips ranked among the 10 largest general hospitals in the United States. And by 1961, at the height of Moyer's influence, Homer G. Phillips had helped train the largest number of black doctors and nurses in the world. Because of his emphasis on education, Moyer felt very strongly that universities should assume the responsibilities for postgraduate education, and the medical faculty had the responsibility to provide superlative care of the ill in university-affiliated hospitals. He also believed that first-class clinical investigation can and should be conducted in every room and ward in the hospital. Moyer abruptly resigned in 1965 because the trustees of Barnes Hospital at that time did not share his vision. The next head of the department was Walter Ballinger, a Markle scholar and another early example of a surgeon scientist. He was well regarded for his studies into the pathophysiology of gastrointestinal disease, such as ulcer disease. He was among the first to show the feasibility of transplanting pancreatic islets using an animal model, which was published in the journal Nature. Ballinger established the first division of pediatric surgery at Washington University, naming the university's first woman surgical trainee, Jessie Turnberg, as chief. Eugene M. Bricker was not head of the department, but he was a senior leader and consummate surgeon. Shortly after training at Washington University, he became head of one of the first cancer hospitals in the United States, the Ellis Michelle Cancer Hospital in Columbia, Missouri. There, he was among the first to recognize the unique importance of multidisciplinary care of the cancer patient. Among his many contributions were the surgical treatment of advanced and recurrent cancer of the pelvic viscera and development of the ileocondyle, which is still utilized today. Once again, Bricker had a strong social consciousness and almost single-handedly integrated Barnes Hospital by virtue of his moral authority. He served as chair of the American Board of Surgery, president of this organization, and vice president of the Southern Surgical and the American College of Surgeons. Finally, my immediate predecessor needs little introduction to this audience. Sam Wells redefined the surgeon scientist. Not only did he establish new standards for an academic department of surgery, but he transitioned Washington University's Department of Surgery to a completely full-time model. His contributions to the study of the Rett proto-oncogene, the treatment of MEN patients, as well as the development of novel targeted therapies are only a few of his major contributions to surgical science. Dr. Wells was editor-in-chief of 3 major surgical journals, the president of 5 major surgical organizations, including the American Surgical, and is the past recipient of the Scientific Medallion, and is still an active member of the Institute of Medicine. In examining the past, we came away with some major guiding principles. The founders and leaders of the department strive for superb clinical care and embrace the need for continual innovation through strong research contributions. One area of innovation has been multidisciplinary care across specialties, and there is a strong record of contributions by surgeons in this area. The emphasis on a full-time university model has been vindicated by extensive examples of first-class clinical investigation by surgeons. Finally, we recognize that surgeons can play an important role in healthcare delivery through maintaining a strong social conscience. But how do we apply these principles to a contemporary department of surgery? We still have the same aspirations for superb clinical care, research through innovation, and an ever greater trend towards multidisciplinary care, and recognize there's a great opportunity to affect societal change. However, many of the forces that will influence surgical care in the future are outside our control. We have already seen dramatic declines in clinical reimbursement. There are threats to our specialty by other disciplines. There is an increasing competition for peer-reviewed funding. There has been a dramatic increase in monitoring of compliance and oversight, and higher levels of professional and personal stress. The demographics of our profession have dramatically changed. During my tenure in the Department of Surgery, the number of women residents and faculty have dramatically increased. And both residents and faculty have had dramatic increases in the number of children. And this creates unique personal and professional stresses. To address these outside forces, we embarked on a very unique program in 2006 that would strengthen the department, create a more supportive environment for our faculty, and enhance and formally train the leadership. Toward that end, we developed these specific objectives for our program. First and foremost, we wanted to more fully understand our faculty's perspective of the current environment, identify priorities determined by our faculty, and develop an action plan. We wanted to formalize our support systems and to increase the leadership effectiveness of our senior faculty. We started our initiative by a faculty survey, to which 91% of our faculty responded. There was overwhelming work satisfaction. However, there was almost equally high job stress. While faculty felt they had the ability to cope with their stress, it was an interesting finding that overwhelmingly they relied on themselves to cope with the stress rather than utilization of support systems. Barely 1/3 of our faculty felt that they had received effective career mentoring. Less than half understood the compensation plan, and fewer understood the promotion process. Almost 80% of our faculty felt that they had seldom displayed behavior issues, yet almost half of the faculty felt that there were behavior issues with their colleagues. Evidence of a disconnect of our beliefs and reality. Following a weekend off-campus leadership retreat, we developed position statements. They reflected our departmental commitment with respect to leadership, behavior, the value of teaching, the academic track and promotion process, patient safety and quality of care, and surgical care and operations. The details of these position statements are posted on our website. Clearly, the full-time model has been embraced, but it is a challenging model and needs critical institutional support in order to maximize its success. The real work, however, began following the retreat. It composed faculty work groups comprising almost 40% of the entire department were created. They focused on mentoring for career development, leadership, behavior, and communication, operations, patient safety, and quality of care, faculty support, and innovations in surgical education. The mentoring work group, under the direction of Greg Sicard, developed an APGAR-like tool that detailed appointments and promotions on a single page. They also proposed specific communication tools between chiefs and their faculty and a formalized performance review process. This group specifically strengthened the support, recognition, and rewards for excellence in teaching and developed a department-wide approach to faculty career development through mentoring. Over the last several years, we have developed a 12-page web-based tool for faculty performance evaluation, as well as a standardized and automated CV process. Recently, this work group, comprised of both leaders and faculty, agreed the process was too cumbersome and instead created a streamlined web portal that will enhance communication between reviewers and evaluees. We have found that emphasizing career development, faculty receive a much more constructive feedback. The work group promoting leadership, behavior, and communications excellence developed a behavioral code of conduct for the department that is integrated with the codes of our partner institutions. Faculty realized there was zero tolerance for misbehavior. Outliers were dealt with quickly, and in several cases, required professional evaluation and intervention. These examples quickly demonstrated a consistent policy. In virtually every case, the faculty member derived great benefit. This group also developed an ombudsperson position to facilitate complaints about behavior. Each faculty leader underwent emotional competency intelligence feedback. This is a 360-degree feedback at department leaders that showed they were highly accomplished chiefs, but we had an aversion to conflict resolution, and we were pretty low in empathy. These characteristics among the chiefs improved after education, coaching, interventions, and practice. Eventually, this work group recommended and implemented ECI for all faculty willing to participate. Here, each member of the faculty who undertook the ECI met with a professional psychologist individually to go over their confidential findings and underwent recommendation for intervention to strengthen their behaviors and overcome any deficiencies. Out of this work group, another work group developed programs to support our faculty. A number of specific programs were developed and covered topics such as emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, happiness, dual career couples, work-life balance, dealing with stress, team building, and Finance 101. The latter is a course developed by some of our faculty and financial staff that provides a fundamental understanding of the finances of the department, the division, and individual faculty members' performance. Some of these events were repeated several times, many were interactive and involved outside coaches, and a number included spouses, where social gathering was involved and babysitting was provided. The Operations Patient Safety Quality of Care faculty group initially focused on things directly under the control of the surgeon faculty member. The first task was assuring consent forms were properly completed prior to surgery, that on-time starts in the OR were enhanced, and there was truth in scheduling. These initiatives immediately paid dividends with our anesthesia, nursing, and administrative colleagues. Based on improvements in behavior and respect for teams, our department faculty have been recognized now by the school and hospital administration as constructive colleagues and positive team members. The natural outgrowth of this group was a work group with two major initiatives. The Surgical Quality Effectiveness Group under the direction of Bruce Hall that was composed of 30 to 40 faculty who focused on the academic aspects of comparative effectiveness research, biostatistical support, powering of studies, and outcomes research. A second, more operational group emphasized clinical quality of care and patient safety initiatives. This group had representatives from virtually every division and section within the department. Hospital administration and the department funded a number of these initiatives, and we found that patient care improved and outcomes in a number of areas were specifically enhanced. The work group on innovations in clinical and surgical education developed and implemented an integrated simulation center, supported through philanthropic funds and in partnership with the Department of Anesthesiology. Through hands-on experience, our faculty have developed specific benchmarks which have dramatically improved the technical skills of our residents and medical students. A $1 million grant from the U.S. Department of Education allowed us to develop a modularized curriculum, which has greatly improved post-secondary education. This was a preamble to the integration of the SCORE curriculum, which is now led by our Vice Chair for Education, Mary Klingensmith. This work group encouraged and developed early specialization programs in both vascular and thoracic surgery, one of the only departments in the country to offer both. They developed specific recommendations for a robust evaluation system encompassing technical skills, leadership, operative performance, and other criteria. The group made many suggestions for leadership changes, morale, and team building. This work group is continuing to design a new web portal under the leadership of Dr. Michael Awad, our new program director. It offers one-stop shopping for all education events, clinical services, administrative directives, and research opportunities for all of our trainees. Under the leadership of Mary and Michael and our 3 associate program directors, we have migrated to an academy model, where residency rotations are treated as courses in an academy, and specific knowledge and skills are incorporated into each rotation. There are prerequisites: face-to-face review of objectives with faculty, a midterm formative feedback, a formal assessment with a written exam, an oral exam, simulation assessment, and operative assessment by a third-party observer. The model allows for successful completion or remediation. So how's all of this attention to supporting and nurturing individual faculty changed our department? We have substantially improved the percent of faculty who have received effective career mentoring. Behavior has clearly improved, both qualitatively and quantitatively. We are on our way toward creating a unique and more supportive environment for our faculty. And this has resulted in increased performance and productivity, as well as retention. As we look to the future, what are the critical elements to guarantee success of an academic department of surgery? In my view, there are 6 areas. Faculty selection, creating the right environment, the development of multidisciplinary centers, investment in well-controlled prospective trials, quality and outcomes initiatives, and a new innovative paradigm for surgical education. As Mark Twain suggested, plan for the future, because that's where you're going to spend the rest of your life. To identify the faculty member who is most likely to succeed, I like to use the 5 Ps. Do they have passion for what they're doing? Do they have a short and long-term plan that is well thought through? Are they willing to work hard? Do they have persistence? That is, the ability to overcome setbacks. Can they be flexible and adapt to change? Do they have a supportive partner? Not necessarily in a formal sense, but do they have someone or something that is their support mechanism? As you all know, my support mechanism has been my wife, Kim. And I'd be remiss if I did not acknowledge her incredible love and support over the years on my journey to this podium. The next critical area is creating an environment, such as I just described, where collaboration and mentoring can develop, leading to critical mass and specific research areas. Let me provide a few examples. Dr. Dan Kreisel in our Division of Cardiothoracic Surgery has developed a mouse model of lung transplantation. With colleagues Sasha Krupnik and Andy Gelman, they utilized 2-photon microscopy to show real-time neutrophil imaging infiltrating lung grafts shortly after reperfusion. This critical mass of surgeon scientists and a PhD in the same division, in the same laboratory, has produced a large number of peer-reviewed grants. And in fact, they've just found out they're receiving another R01. In another case, Jennifer Lawton studies potassium ATP channel myocyte contractility. Since hyperkalemia and cardioplegia develop an osmotic stress which can lead to poor performance of the cardiomyocyte. While Jennifer has 2 of the best mentors in the world in Ralph Damiano and Alec Patterson, neither is intimately knowledgeable about the cell biology necessary to assure her success in the laboratory. That required a cell biologist at Washington University, Dr. Colin Nichols, who happens to be the world's authority on ion flux in a cell. This specific mentoring alliance, one of many in our department, has resulted in a very successful surgeon scientist and one of the only women cardiac surgeons with an R01. Similarly, collaborations are important. The next slide shows a completely unique imaging technology utilizing laser and ultrasound called photoacoustic imaging. It was developed by one of our world-renowned biomedical engineers, Dr. Li Hong Huang. He is currently collaborating with a number of our surgical faculty. Julie Morgan-Taylor is utilizing this technology with the hope of replacing open sentinel lymph node biopsies by identifying sentinel lymph nodes with this imaging technique, but then doing a needle biopsy of the lymph node. This technology has also been miniaturized and is applicable to endoscopic evaluation in identifying pre-malignant changes in the distal esophagus. This has resulted in an R01 with Dr. Brent Matthews in our department, who's a new member today. It is also useful in identifying single-cell melanoma tumor cells and planning a wide excision for melanoma. That's a collaboration with one of our newest faculty members and an American Surgical Fellowship awardee, Ryan Fields. Each of these investigators have peer review funding and third-party supported clinical trials because of these collaborations. Over the years, we have carefully developed contiguous research laboratories within the Department of Surgery. They enhance critical mass, mentoring, and collaboration, as well as efficiency of investment of financial resources for protected research time. So what are the results of all these efforts? The Department of Surgery today has over 130 peer-reviewed grants, totaling $26 million a year. That's nearly a 5-fold increase in grant activity over the last 15 years. Another critical element in the future will be embracing the development of multidisciplinary centers on specific diseases. It will be increasingly difficult for surgeons, in my opinion, to practice clinically or perform research without involving other disciplines. This integrated approach, pioneered by Bricker and embraced by Ballinger and Wells, capitalizes on the team building that we have done with our faculty, fellows, and residents. It requires shared governance that identifies common wins rather than winners and losers. As a center director, I am not supportive of centers having all of the funds flow, because that would diminish the departmental integrity. Rather, I envision a matrix model where the center is held accountable for developing clinical research and educational programs, but the profitability is shared with each of the groups that participate in the center. Let me provide a few examples. At Washington University, we have 3 major centers that involve the Department of Surgery. Embracing these centers has made a huge impact on our clinical volume of patients. In fact, we have more than doubled our clinical volume in the last decade. Our 3 centers, the Siteman Cancer Center, now one of the largest comprehensive cancer centers in the United States, the Heart and Vascular Center, which has team leadership of cardiology, cardiac surgery, and vascular surgery, and the Transplantation Center, which has shared leadership of surgery and medicine. So as first pioneered by Bricker, the partner trial for endovascular valve replacement mandated collaboration of both the preoperative evaluation and the intraoperative procedure that resulted in an amazing collaboration in our institution between cardiology and cardiac surgery. As seen in the next slide, the trials not only resulted in a dramatic increase in endovascular valve replacement, the red line, which is now on pace to go over 100 cases this year, but has resulted in significant increase in aortic valve replacement, the blue line. This collaboration went so well in the Heart and Vascular Center that it became a template and was expanded to other areas of cardiovascular disease, including heart failure, hybrid procedures to treat atrial fibrillation, and the treatment of complex thoracic and aortic arch aneurysms. Basic and translational research is also improved using this integrated center model. Dr. Will Galanders, another new member today, is developing a unique breast cancer vaccine using the patient's own tumor mutations. They are identified by cancer exome sequencing and then developing an immune response to the patient's unique tumor mutations. Vaccines are produced in the GMP facility of the Cancer Center, and a clinical trial is now ongoing and supported by peer-reviewed grants. This project involves the Genome Institute, cores from the Cancer Center, collaborations in immunology, pathology, and medicine, and it could have never been done successfully in a Department of Surgery alone. To maintain excellence in clinical investigation, our department is invested in a clinical research organization utilizing the template from our Cancer Center. This has enhanced the productivity of the department and resulted in a dramatic increase in peer-reviewed trials. Our goal is to fulfill Moyer's dream of first-class clinical investigation on every patient in every room. Our vascular surgery section, under the direction of Dr. Luis Sanchez, has developed a number of innovative clinical trials sponsored by NIH, industry, and involve multiple specialties like cardiac surgery, cardiology, and interventional radiology. These are carefully controlled clinical trials, not observational case series from one institution. They frequently are groundbreaking, but require multi-specialty collaboration and lead to several of our vascular surgeons serving as national principal investigators. This clinical trial research infrastructure has also facilitated development of technological advances, such as the image-guided liver surgery developed by Will Chapman and his colleagues. This is now an FDA-approved clinical tool in use in a number of major academic medical centers, in addition to Washington University. Surgeons should embrace properly performed, well-controlled, level 1 evidence, randomized controlled trials, which will result in significant publications for surgeons. One example is Dr. Gerald Andriol's leadership in Aplica's screening trial of prostate cancer. This is a very expensive but well-controlled and powered study to show level 1 evidence. Active participation in this clinical research effort leads to significant research support, important level 1 publications, and unique leadership opportunities nationally for our surgical faculty. In fact, this past year, our department netted over $3 million of clinical trial support, an important source of revenue fueling our overall research enterprise. As mentioned previously, one of our work groups has led to an operational group on quality and outcomes initiatives. They've used NISQIP, STS, UNOS, UHC databases, and we have collaborated with the now Division of Public Health Science that is housed in the Department of Surgery. These are well-trained epidemiologists and biostatisticians who collaborate on projects, assure appropriate biostatistical methodologies, and powering of studies. A great example is the work by Bruce Hall that requires innovative statistical methodology to link an individual surgeon's performance to outcomes. I thankfully don't have time to go over all the specifics of the Bayesian hierarchical bivariate model that was developed by Bruce and Bart Hamilton from our School of Business. But suffice it to say that we will be able to identify individual surgeon performance and utilize this information to assess performance in making recommendations for reappointment, promotion, and compensation levels. The next slide shows an analysis comparing a number of academic departments in terms of patient morbidity and mortality. Our department is at the far right, but you can easily see variability of individual surgeon performance in each of those departments, as well as variability between the departments. This will certainly have implications for maintenance of board certification and clinical privileging in the future. Already, a number of third parties are reporting out outcomes of surgical interventions. The NIH recently supported a new system for evaluating all 246 transplant centers, using a mixed effect model and more accurate statistical methodologies. Here is a list of the top 10 centers from that publication. Data shows that the average survival for a kidney transplant is very high, of no surprise. However, the risk of death is 3 times higher in the worst center, number 246, compared to the best. With proper support of biostatisticians, methodology, infrastructure, surgeons should be well poised to lead these efforts. This will result in better patient care and less decrease in reimbursement and a higher stature of our profession. Finally, we need to change the paradigm of surgical education. We can no longer utilize a time-based osmosis method of training. As our education work group has done, we need to focus on developing specific curricula, performance evaluations, and emphasis on team building. Our forum tomorrow will more specifically address these very important issues. However, to tempt you without stealing our distinguished panelists' thunder, we need to address the political issues, develop a modular curriculum, make heavy investment in simulation and virtual training, eliminate non-essential elements, utilize frequent objective one-on-one performance reviews, and emphasize team care and structure. I would hope that this forum, the task force that I've appointed, and the support of our president-elect will result in a pilot study by several institutions to prospectively evaluate this new paradigm. In summary, ladies and gentlemen, a successful Department of Surgery for the future will be built on the traditions and the values of the past, but identify and plan for change. You will emphasize multidisciplinary centers, prospective controlled clinical trials, population health, comparative effectiveness, and change to our surgical education paradigm. At the same time, department leaders need to institute supportive programs to ensure the best chances for professional and personal success of every young man and woman who embraces the life of an academic surgeon. I am very optimistic about the future. Looking at the caliber of the inductees today, our ongoing diversity, and our future leaders, this organization and our profession has a bright future. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the incredible surgical faculty and our department administration at Washington University. They have embraced change. They've built on the past, but they are focused on the future. And it is my privilege to work with them daily. Finally, in closing, I can never thank you enough for the honor and privilege that it has been to serve as your president. And I very much appreciate your attention today and your support for this past year. Thank you very much.